catastrophe continues to mount over at the southern border. According to the Associated Press, Haitian migrants seeking to escape poverty, hunger, and a feeling of hopelessness in their home country said they will not be deterred by U.S. plans to speedily send them back, as thousands of people remain encamped on the Texas border Saturday after crossing from Mexico. Scores of people waded back and forth across the Rio Grande on Saturday afternoon, re-entering Mexico to purchase water, food, and diapers in Ciudad Acuna before returning to the Texas encampment under and near a bridge in the border city of Del Rio. Now remember, we were told a wall was completely unnecessary because if there is a river there, no one would actually cross that river. Well, it seems like people are crossing the river and then going back and forth across the river many times and finding, as it turns out, holes in America's border system where they can descend on areas and then apply for asylum. Junior Jean, a 32-year-old man from Haiti, watched as people cautiously carried cases of water or bags of food through the knee-high river water. Jean said he lived on the streets in Chile the past 4 years, resigned to searching for food in garbage cans. Okay, so what drove him now? If he was in Chile for the past 4 years, what exactly was the big driver right now? Could it have something to do with the advent of a brand new administration that is not led by Donald Trump? He said, "We're all looking for a better life." The Department of Homeland Security said Saturday it had moved about 2,000 of the migrants from the camp to other locations on Friday for processing and possible removal from the United States. They also said they'd have 400 agents and officers in the area by Monday morning. Now, here's the reason why they are doing that. The reason that they are sending a bunch of new officers is, of course, because it had been humiliating to them that the state of Texas had actually intervened and sent its own officers. Right? That's actually what happened here, is that the state of Texas sent law enforcement officers. According to Daily Wire, law enforcement officials with the state of Texas appear to have taken control of the situation in Del Rio, Texas, after the Biden administration repeatedly failed to stop tens of thousands of migrants from illegally entering the United States. Governor Greg Abbott said in a tweet, quote, "The Texas Department of Public Safety is in full force along the border around the Del Rio area." And then he put out a picture that showed scores of law enforcement vehicles that had descended on the area. He said they built a barricade with their squad cars and state troopers. The National Guard is working with them to secure the border as well. Fox News national correspondent Bill Malugin tweeted out a video showing the massive surge in law enforcement presence at the border. The Texas Department of Public Safety tweeted out photographs from both the ground and from their drone showing the scale of the Abbott response to the crisis that started late last week and erupted over the past few days. And of course, the Texas Department of Public Safety noted their response came after the federal government had failed to secure the border. When we say they had failed to secure the border, we actually have some pictures and video of what it looks like when you fail to secure the border. Here is a picture from the air of the migrant camp, which is under a freeway overpass. And if you can't see it, I will describe it for you. It is literally thousands upon thousands of people who are standing under an overpass, many of them in 100-degree heat. A lot of them, as it turns out, from some of the video, have built themselves sort of ramshackle structures using essentially leaves and sticks in order so that they don't burn to death or dehydrate to death under the overpass. So it's a humanitarian crisis as well. Fox News' Bill Malugin, he says, listen, our border is wide open.
This is where hundreds of people are streaming into the United States illegally right now. Certainly does not look like an international border there, but you can see the crowds of people down there. These are people who have just crossed it. And Brian, if we can pan up that dirt path, take a look. That's where they're all walking to the bridge right now. That's why there's so many people under the bridge. You can see them streaming in across the Rio Grande. That's when they officially cross illegally into the United States, and seeing the scope of it all over the place. It's wild. I mean, our border is wide open where you're looking at right now.
Yeah, amazingly, the FAA had actually attempted to ban drone footage from this particular area, citing lack of safety protocols, which of course is incredibly silly because they've had drones over there for quite a while. That was purely an attempt to stop the news from covering it, and then when they got caught, then they reversed themselves. Some of the video from under the bridge is just as disturbing as some of the 500,000-foot video that you're seeing right there. Here's some of the video from underneath the bridge that was taken also by Bill Malugin. Okay, if you can't see it again, you're seeing huge crowds of people. These are those structures I was talking about, blankets, small children, some of the people who are sitting here in the sunshine. It's unbelievable. And it's a refugee camp directly on the border. Now, I have a question. Where's AOC? Is she still at the Met Gala? I was told that I know that parking lots adjacent to holding facilities really upset her so much that she shows up there wearing white costumes and then stands outside and cries directly into camera. I know it's very upsetting to see large stretches of pavement and no actual migrants there. But, when there's like thousands of migrants under an overpass, many of them suffering from humanitarian need, I don't see her anywhere, but I guess she was at the Met Gala, so she was busy. And meanwhile, the Democratic mayor of Del Rio is slamming Joe Biden. His name is Bruno Ralphie Lozano. He tweeted out, "The U.S. is failing to protect its borders. Why aren't you here?" He was tweeting out at Vice President Kamala Harris. Okay. Meanwhile, you had the Representative August Flager, Republican of Texas, saying, "Yeah, this is a pretty major crisis that we are looking at right now. This is not just some sort of temporary problem." And of course, this is part of a broader crisis. Okay, here's Representative Flager.
You can see the tragedy coming across the Weir Dam. We're about 100 yards away from the International Bridge in Del Rio. Over 14,800 people as of this morning, up from 12,000, up from 10,000. And this week, we have surged from 1 to 2,000 to 14,000. This is a crisis. We need the administration to call it a crisis, to take action, not just here, but all along our southern border, where we're going to have 2 million people, illegal immigrants that are documented. That doesn't include the gotaways. It doesn't include the known or suspected terrorists. We need the administration to do something right now.
According to Fluger, a lot of these people are military-aged males. He reportedly told Fox News there was allegedly criminal activity taking place in the area where illegal immigrants were staying under the bridge. According to Fluger, the border officials told him this was the worst they have ever seen it. He also said this was worse than you could imagine, and he said the worst is yet to come, because if they decide to riot or if unrest happened, it would be a terrible situation. It's ripe. It's 100 degrees outside right now. You literally have 14,878 people here. That's how serious the situation is right now. Even the New York Times reported that local officials are describing the scene as a, quote, shanty town with little access to clean water and food and just a few portable toilets. The Times noted no running water at the site. Photos showed people having to carry large packages of bottled water into the area. So as I say, the governor of Texas sent some people in there to try and clean things up. And this then prompted the Biden administration to respond. The U.S. is now saying that we are going to start flying people out of there. Apparently, we're going to start flying 5 to 8 flights a day from the area starting on Sunday. Another official from the government expected no more than 2 a day, said everyone would be tested for COVID-19. Now, remember, that had been one of the Republican complaints, is that people who are being released into the interior of the United States are not actually being tested for COVID-19 before they are being released. Told of the U.S.'s plans on Saturday, several migrants said they still intended to remain in the encampment and seeking asylum. Some spoke of the most recent devastating earthquake in Haiti, as well as the assassination of President Jovenel Moise, saying they were afraid to return to a country that seemed more unstable than when they left in the first place. It is a full-scale disaster area. Again, the reason this is happening is not just because of foreign crisis. The reality is foreign crisis exists all over the world for oodles of time. The Northern Triangle countries have had serious internal problems for decades at this point. There is nothing new under the sun. What changed here is that Joe Biden became president, and people have decided that they are now going to try to brave the journey, hoping that Joe Biden is going to let them in. This is finally prompting DHS to use some Trumpian-type language. The Department of Homeland Security said, quote, "Our borders are not open. People should not make the dangerous journey. Individuals and families are subject to border restrictions, including expulsion," said the agency. "Irregular migration poses a significant threat to the health and welfare of border communities and to the lives of migrants themselves, and should not be attempted." But of course, there have been a lot of public interviews with people who are attempting to make that crossing, and it turns out that many of them are saying, "We don't believe you. We think that you are faking. And we think that in reality, if we cross the border and if we are released into the interior, you will plan immediately to give us some sort of amnesty," which of course is true, which is why you've seen a massive surge since Joe Biden was elected in the first place. According to the Washington Post, this is as of last month, the number of migrants detained along the Mexico border crossed a new threshold in July, exceeding 200,000 people for the first time in 21 years, according to CBP. Among the 213,000 migrants taken into U.S. custody in July of this year were 83,000 family members and 19,000 unaccompanied teenagers and children. That was an all-time high as well. Again, AOC nowhere to be found. She was wearing a tax the rich dress, created, as it turns out, by a possible tax cheat. So, she's busy. She's busy. As of July, more than 15,000 minors who arrived without parents were in government custody, many sleeping in grim military barracks. A South Texas park along the Rio Grande had been converted into a sprawling quarantine camp for more than 1,000 parents and children who had tested positive for COVID or been exposed to infection. All of this, by the way, has prompted the Biden administration to actually embrace many of the exact same policies that the Trump administration embraced. So now they've surged a bunch of people to the border. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Biden administration sent more agents to the Texas bridge to move Haitian migrants. This was as of Sunday. The Biden administration said it would be sending additional border agents U.S. Customs and Border Protection planned to send 400 agents and officers to Del Rio and was moving migrants to other processing locations along the border, including about 2,000 on Friday. Now remember, that still leaves somewhere between 12 and 13,000 people who are not moved from that area as of Sunday. DHS also said they were going to start flying people back to Haiti on Sunday as well. Haitians apparently have been coming at a steady clip all year long to Del Rio, a remote border region of the border west of San Antonio, creating a fresh humanitarian crisis in a year when illegal border crossings have hit a 2-decade high. And the Biden administration has been struggling to handle a crush of asylum seekers. The Border Patrol has facilities that are not large enough to accommodate the recent crush. They've instead been holding migrants under the bridge, often for days, because they literally have no place else to put these people, and they are processing their immigration paperwork. So, full-on disaster. On Thursday, by the way, a federal judge in Washington ruled the Biden administration was violating immigration law by rapidly expelling migrant families using the Title 42 policy. That judge stayed the effect of his decision for 2 weeks. On Friday, the administration appealed the decision to a higher court. So, the Biden administration came into office pledging they were going to reverse all of Trump's evil, horrible, no good, very bad immigration policies. And they've been avidly attempting to reinforce those exact same policies while claiming that they have radically changed things. Right? So you get the worst of both worlds. You get the Biden administration, which is apparently engaging in precisely the sort of evil humanitarian, anti-humanitarian measures as Trump. And the message is, come on in, which is rather conflicting. Vox.com reported on this just a little while ago. They reported, quote, despite promises to institute a more humane immigration policy, the Biden administration has clung to pandemic-related border restrictions, like Title 42, implemented by the Trump administration last year. Since March 2020, that policy had been used to rapidly expel more than 1 million migrants without hearings before an immigration judge. Biden also pledged, remember, that he was going to get rid of Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. This is people who are applying for asylum, and the idea was that instead of us releasing you to the interior while you await your court hearing, instead, if you want to apply for asylum, you got to wait in Mexico while we go through your paperwork. Okay, Trump had negotiated that deal with the Mexican government, and now Biden came in, he said, I'm getting rid of it, but he reversed himself, because it turns out that when you reverse all of the sensical, logical policies, bad things happen. All the while, Biden's message has been, quote unquote, don't come. Toward Haitians specifically, Biden's policies are wildly inconsistent. Again, this isn't me. This is Vox.com, which is a Biden cheering section. Quote, he has allowed more than 100,000 Haitians already living in the U.S. to apply for temporary protected status. At the same time, he has continued to prevent Haitians waiting on the other side of the U.S.-Mexico border from entering under Title 42, and to the shock of immigration advocates, resumed deportation flights to Haiti on Wednesday. So, again, conflicting policy, bad rhetoric, and the predictable result is a mess on the border. Remember, Kamala Harris was supposed to solve this. Didn't they put her in charge of the border crisis? And that was funny. I mean, not like funny enough for Kamala Harris to laugh the way she does. That's just weird, but funny that they put her in charge of the border crisis, and it's been a complete and utter failure. This is just part and parcel, again, of the internally conflicting messaging of this administration and the wild incompetence of this administration as well. It's amazing that the rip on Trump is that his team was wildly incompetent. I'll tell you a few things that Trump didn't do. He didn't lead to a 21-year high in illegal immigration and have no actual plan to deal with it. He also, I noticed, didn't abandon Afghanistan to the tender predations of the Taliban and leave thousands of green card holders behind. Notice that one as well. Who's got two thumbs and wants you to like and subscribe?